Hello there. Welcome to Weird Music on the Glumberger channel. This is, of course, that really weird show where we look at different albums, of course, and we definitely take liberties with the word weird, to be perfectly honest, but you know what? It's my show. You bring the music, I'll bring the weird, okay? Anyway, in today's episode, we have a genuinely weird album for you. We're going to be returning to the crazy and absurd world of the Gerogerigegege, which we covered in our episode on Tokyo Anal Dynamite, of course. A pummeling assault of pure unfiltered noise that bombards you with its confusing array of songs and covers. So in today's episode, we're looking at another one of their records, one that has, I would argue, a bit of infamy amongst the band's fan base, but it's one that I find genuinely interesting and weirdly enjoyable for some reason. Today, we're looking at the 1999 record, Non-Friendly. So, in our episode on Tokyo Anal Dynamite, we did already ask ourselves, who are the Gerogerigegege? So if you'd like to have that answered again, feel free to go back to that video and find out again. So yeah, I don't feel the need to go through it again on this episode. So yeah, today we're talking about Non-Friendly. This album is an entirely different recording to what one might expect from the band. Whereas Tokyo Anal Dynamite and, to be fair, many of their other releases are these onslaughts of Japanoise. Non-Friendly is, for all intents and purposes, a drone record. It's an hour-long drone recording that just melts and warps your brain as you progress along this incredibly and unusual sustained tone that plays out for just shy of an hour, basically. It's presented as an almost minimalist recording, featuring this really weird scrawly drawing on the front cover of a boy on a horse. It's such an unusual album, but I find it genuinely interesting to listen to, so hence why I wanted to discuss it. So, Non-Friendly, it's kind of a radical and departure from the chaotic and noisy music we've been seeing from the band, and yet I can understand why Juntaro Yamanouchi wanted to release a record like this, So, as I feel with so much of the Gerogerigegge's output, it's all about subverting norms and releasing music that is inaccessible, unusual, and generally meant to troll the people who listen to the band. And what would be more inaccessible than an hour-long drone recording that doesn't really contain any audible differences throughout the recording itself, whether it be 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, or even 40 minutes in? It's this consistently playing drone that pushes out with this really unusual yet oddly satisfying and chewy synthesized tone. Wait a minute, did I say synthesized? That's not right. Non-Friendly explicitly states throughout this recording, no synthesizers were used. And so I tried to do some digging around to find the source of what this particular sound is, and it's generally understood that nobody knows for sure. To be fair though, I did find one review though, and the reviewer theorized that it's probably a guitar tuner put through several effects pedals, most notably chorus, flanger, and reverb, which is a fair theory to, as to what this unusual record is. But of course, we have to remember that this is the Gerogerigegege we're talking about, and as with any release by the band, any explicit information is generally absent, as Yamanouchi likes to make his records as esoteric as possible, it feels. And to be fair, mentioning that there is a lack of synthesizer, it's a very interesting point. But I'll be honest, I take this with a grain of salt because we know how much of a troll Yamanouchi can be, especially when regarding incorrect information that's within the very liner notes of his releases. You know, we saw on Tokyo Anal Dynamite, it seems like, very strange information that was never direct to us. And so, yeah, like what we end up with here though is a record that simply cannot be worked out on a literal level. So, as per usual, all we can go on is what we're hearing. So, as mentioned, it's an hour-long drone recording. It pushes along consistently with no pauses and no respites. And so, I find it very interesting to listen to records like this. You know, the actual drones themselves, like, especially on this one, it's one that is rising and falling up the notes, creating this incredibly wavy sensation, especially when you just let the whole thing wash over and overload you when you listen to it. And as well, there's this wonderful intertwining quality to many of the layers themselves, which seem to just twist around each other in this, this wonderfully strange way. It's odd because it's kind of a behemoth of an album to approach and listen to, especially with its incredibly lengthy runtime, but oddly enough, within the entirety of the Gerogerigegge's discography, I would argue this is perhaps one of the more listenable albums Yamanouchi has ever released, like on a literal level, like the actual tone itself is just rather pleasant. It's not, like screechy and whiny and high-pitched and uncomfortable and feedbacky as like some of the other records you'd see from the band. And so, yeah, weirdly enough, there's this lovely, satisfying quality to the drone itself that it makes it this weirdly delightful experience. And as well, like, it becomes incredibly cosmic as you just let yourself be entirely hypnotized by the music itself the more you let it play into its lengthy runtime. And as someone who is interested in drone records, as you no doubt know by now, I find this one just so enjoyable to listen to, despite coming from a band known for making the weirdest and most inapproachable music ever. That being said, Non-Friendly does baffle and confuse a lot of people out there, and it doesn't rank all that high amongst certain fans of the band, which is, probably the way Yamanouchi wants it. It seems that so many of his efforts are just to frustrate and annoy the listeners of his music, which I find really funny. And so, going back to the track itself though, there is one trick that Yamanouchi does on this particular album that is kind of funny, and to be expected as well. And especially considering this is a drone record, I feel like this is actually a very interesting point to mention. So, Non-Friendly opens up with this rather slow fade into the main drone itself. It's somewhat typical way to start the proceedings of any drone record, I would argue. However, when it comes to the end of this record, Non-Friendly just stops. The album reaches its end after 58 minutes and 36 seconds, and the drone just cuts out entirely. There's no gentle fade out, no removing of layers until you get just one tone left. No. Yamanouchi, rather rudely, just lets the recording cut into nothingness, and it creates this rather stark ending to the entire experience. And, although there's something a little bit frustrating about that, I think there's also something incredibly funny about it as well. It's a very dramatic way to end a drone record. And as well, if you sat down and become completely hypnotized by the entirety of this recording and absorbed by the whole thing, this rather sudden edit to end the whole thing really stands out in an uncomfortable and unsatisfying way, which I feel like it's rather intentional, if that makes sense, especially considering this is Yamanouchi we're discussing here. It's like the actual presentation of an hour-long drone recording, is to upset, fans of the band's usual output, where the songs are incredibly short, loud, chaotic, and frenetic, and instead here you just got one incredibly long, sustained tone as a record. But I feel like, just to further subvert things, this rather abrupt ending is to perhaps upset anybody who might be actually enjoying the drone itself. Of course, it's speculation, but considering the type of person Yamanouchi is, it would not surprise me at all. So, yeah, definitely a peculiar record, isn't it? Just to go into it a little bit more before we close off, from what little information we do actually have on this record, we can find out that None Friendly was originally recorded in October 1987 in Tokyo, being mastered by one Tatsuya Yoshida and Magabitsu Studios in May 1999. And so I find it interesting that Yamanouchi had been sitting on this kind of recording, since the late 80s, and it took him well over a decade to turn it into a tangible release under the name of the Gerogerigegege. And to be fair though, this collection of recordings across his many years of activity, this is something that we'll see Yamanouchi do more of in the future, as well as on other records, And it seems that on one of the more recent Gerogerigegege releases, or records, Shinjuku ni Inochubi Sabi Shimu Uta Soshi, which roughly translates to, there are many songs that make you feel lonely in Shinjuku. It's a massive compilation of 10 cassette tapes that have been originally released between the years of 1980 to 1990, containing many disparate sounds from many past releases by the Gerogerigegege. And as with many of the releases by this band, apparently this one is nearly impossible to acquire, but it's probably essential for the die-hard fans of the group, so yeah, if you're a completionist there, I feel very sorry for you, because this one's going to be very difficult to get your hands on. But a fascinating insight into so much of the processes of the band. I just thought it was worth mentioning. And so, with that, we've come to the end of today's episode of Weird Music. I think it's interesting returning to the world of Gerogerigegege. The band have such an eclectic array of releases, and to be perfectly honest, we might dive into some more of them in the future. I'm thinking of maybe having a look at Hell Driver or Senzuri Champion. Maybe. But in any case, None Friendly, certainly an enigmatic record that really raises the eyebrow, and it can also be weirdly enjoyable though if you just let those drones just pour over yourself as you drift off into the weird soundscape that it's offering. And yeah, I do find albums like this interesting. It really puts me into peculiar headspaces when I listen to them, but yeah, it's such an enigmatic Gerogerigegege release, so weirdly different from the crazy chaotic sounds you often get from them, but man, it's the unexpected is what you should expect by now from this band, to be fair. And so, yeah, with that, I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode of Weird Music. If you have a favourite album by Gerogerigegege album, then please tell me in the comments below, because I'd like to actually check out more albums by this band, especially ones that are your favourites, if that's okay. But yeah, I would like to wish you all the best, take care, and bye-bye for now. Bye-bye!